Hello there, fellow entrepreneurs and business aficionados. You know, the world of business is often portrayed as a thrilling roller coaster ride of profits, growth, and champagne celebrations. And while that's certainly part of the story, what they don't always tell you about is the paperwork. Specifically, the contracts that, if you're not careful, can morph from harmless-looking documents into ticking time bombs for your beloved business. We've all heard the phrase, "read the fine print," but let's be honest, who among us truly has the time or, frankly, the desire to decipher pages upon pages of legal jargon? But here's the kicker. Those seemingly insignificant clauses buried deep within your contracts can have the power to make or break your business. So buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into the often overlooked world of contract clauses and exposing 5 sneaky culprits that could be lurking in your agreements right now, just waiting to wreak havoc. Get ready to protect your business. First up, we're tackling the often misunderstood indemnity clause. Now I know what you're thinking. Indemnity clause? Sounds like something I'd find in a dusty old textbook, right? Well, hold on to your hats, because this clause is anything but boring. In essence, an indemnity clause is basically a legal way of saying, if something goes wrong, you're on the hook for it, buddy. Imagine this. You run a catering business and you're hired to cater a lavish wedding. Everything is going swimmingly. The canapes are disappearing faster than you can say hors d'oeuvres, the champagne is flowing, and the guests are busting a move on the dance floor. But then, disaster strikes. One of the guests trips over a stray microphone cable, takes a tumble, and decides to sue. Not the wedding venue, but you, the caterer. Now, if your contract with the venue includes a broad indemnity clause, guess what? You guessed it. You could be held liable for the guest's injuries and any legal costs, even if the accident wasn't directly your fault. Talk about a wedding cake gone wrong. To avoid this contractual nightmare, here's the key. Always, always, always scrutinize the language of an indemnity clause before you sign on the dotted line. Look for clauses that limit your liability to situations where you were actually negligent, and if you're ever unsure, don't hesitate to call in the big guns, a legal professional who can help you navigate the complexities of these clauses and ensure you're not signing away your business in the process. Remember, in the world of business contracts, knowledge is power. By understanding the potential pitfalls of indemnity clauses, you can protect yourself from unnecessary financial and legal headaches down the road. Alright, let's move on to another sneaky devil in disguise, the non-compete clause. This little gem is a favorite among companies looking to stifle competition and keep their employees, well, locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Now on the surface, a non-compete clause might seem somewhat reasonable. After all, businesses want to protect their trade secrets and prevent employees from jumping ship and taking valuable clients with them. But here's the rub. These clauses can often be so restrictive that they essentially hold your future career hostage. Imagine you've been working for a tech startup for a few years, pouring your heart and soul into developing a groundbreaking new app. But then, things go south. The company culture takes a nosedive, your boss starts wearing Crocs to work, always a bad sign, and you decide it's time to move on to greener pastures. You land a fantastic opportunity with a rival company, but there's just one tiny problem. That pesky non-compete clause you signed when you first joined the startup. This clause, drafted by lawyers who apparently moonlight as Bond villains, prevents you from working for any competitor in the entire tech industry for the next 5 years. Suddenly, your dream job evaporates into thin air, and you're left with 2 choices. Take a job flipping burgers, no offense to burger flippers, or spend the next 5 years living as a hermit in the woods, surviving on berries and the bitter taste of contractual regret. To avoid this career-crushing scenario, here's the takeaway. Always, always, always scrutinize the scope and duration of any non-compete clause before you sign. If the terms seem overly broad or unreasonable, don't be afraid to push back and negotiate. Remember, your skills and experience are valuable, and you shouldn't let a contract prevent you from pursuing opportunities that are in your best interest. Chapter 3. Now let's talk about a clause that's about as welcome as a surprise visit from your in-laws. The termination clause. This one can be a real doozy, especially if it's written in a way that's about as clear as mud. Because let's face it, nobody wants to think about their business relationship ending badly, but sometimes it's like that Taylor Swift song, you know, the one about bad blood? Yeah, that one. A termination clause outlines the circumstances under which a contract can be terminated. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's the catch. If the clause is vague or one-sided, It can leave you vulnerable to sudden and potentially devastating contract terminations. Imagine you're running a thriving online store, and you've just signed a contract with a new supplier for a hot new product that's flying off the virtual shelves. You're ecstatic. But then, just as you're about to pop the champagne to celebrate your newfound success, you receive an email from the supplier. They're terminating your contract effective immediately. Why? Well, it turns out that the termination clause in your agreement is so vague that it allows the supplier to terminate the contract for any reason, or even no reason at all. To avoid this business-ending heartbreak, here's the key. Always, always, always scrutinize the language of a termination clause, paying close attention to the grounds for termination and the notice period required. And if you're on the receiving end of a contract with a termination clause that seems designed to give you an ulcer, don't be afraid to push back and negotiate for more favorable terms. Remember, a well-drafted termination clause should protect both parties involved, not just one. Chapter 4. Okay, let's move on to a clause that's all about secrecy and intrigue, the confidentiality clause. Now I know what you're thinking, confidentiality? Sounds pretty straightforward, right? And you're not wrong. After all, businesses need to protect their sensitive information, their secret recipes, their groundbreaking inventions, their embarrassing karaoke performances at the company holiday party. You get the picture. But here's the thing. Confidentiality clauses can sometimes be drafted so broadly that they end up doing more harm than good. They can restrict your ability to collaborate with others, share valuable information, and even pursue new business opportunities. Imagine you're a marketing consultant, and you've just finished working on a successful campaign for a client in the fashion industry. You're eager to showcase your skills and land new clients. So you start networking and sharing details about the campaign without revealing any of the client's truly confidential information, of course. But then, you receive a strongly worded letter from the client's lawyer accusing you of breaching the confidentiality clause in your contract. It turns out that the clause is so broad that it prevents you from even mentioning that you worked with the client, let alone discussing the campaign in any detail. To avoid this PR nightmare, here's the key. Always, always, always pay close attention to the scope of a confidentiality clause. Make sure it's clear what information is considered confidential and what you're allowed to disclose. And if you're ever unsure, don't hesitate to seek legal advice to ensure you're not inadvertently violating the terms of your contract. Remember, confidentiality is important, but it shouldn't come at the expense of your ability to grow your business and build relationships. Chapter 5. And finally, let's talk about a clause that's about as much fun as a root canal, the dispute resolution clause. Now I know, conflict resolution isn't exactly the sexiest topic in the world, but trust me, this is one area where you definitely don't want to be caught off guard. A dispute resolution clause outlines how disagreements or disputes between parties to a contract will be resolved. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's the catch. If the clause is drafted in a way that's unfair or one-sided, it can put you at a significant disadvantage if a dispute arises. Imagine you're a small business owner, and you're in a contract dispute with a much larger company, let's say, a corporation so big, it makes Scrooge McDuck's money bin look like a piggy bank. Now if your contract includes a clause requiring mandatory arbitration, and the arbitration is set to take place in a location that's thousands of miles away and costs an arm and a leg just to get to, well, you can probably guess who has the advantage in that situation. And to make matters worse, the arbitrator is a former executive from, you guessed it, the very same mega corporation you're in a dispute with. To avoid this legal nightmare, here's the key. Always, always, always carefully review the dispute resolution clause in any contract before you sign. If the clause requires arbitration, make sure it's clear where the arbitration will take place, who will pay the costs, and how the arbitrator will be selected. And if you're ever unsure about the terms of a dispute resolution clause, don't hesitate to seek legal advice. Remember, a fair and balanced dispute resolution process can save you time, money, and a whole lot of headaches down the road. So there you have it. 5 contract clauses that could be lurking in your agreements right now, just waiting to sabotage your business. From indemnity clauses that could leave you holding the bag for someone else's mistake, to non-compete clauses that could stifle your career growth, these sneaky devils can have a major impact on your bottom line. The good news is that by understanding these clauses and knowing what to look for, you can protect yourself from unnecessary risks and negotiate contracts that are fair and beneficial for both parties involved. Remember, knowledge is power, and in the world of business contracts, a little bit of knowledge can go a long way. So the next time you're about to sign a contract, don't just skim through it and sign on the dotted line. Take your time, read the fine print, yes, all of it. And don't be afraid to ask questions or seek legal advice if you need it. Your business and your sanity will thank you for it. And be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you want more business tips on protecting your company.